In a noisy marketplace, the sun bathed the streets in warmth. Among the busy vendors and chattering people, a white dog wandered, her eyes darting desperately from one food stall to another. She was thin, her ribs visible beneath her fur, and her steps were slow, tired. But she wasn't searching for herself. Somewhere, hidden in a quiet alley, her tiny puppies waited, hungry and weak. The dog spotted a small loaf of bread resting on the edge of a stall. Her heart quickened, this could feed her babies. She edged closer, her body low to the ground, hoping no one would notice, but as she reached for it, a man's shadow loomed over her. "Get lost," the man yelled, his voice harsh. Before she could react, his boot slammed into her side, sending her sprawling into the dirt. Pain flared through her body, and a yelp escaped her mouth. The crowd around them barely paused, indifferent to the suffering of a stray. The man turned away, satisfied with having chased her off. But the white dog, despite the throbbing pain in her side, couldn't give up. Her babies were waiting. Slowly, she dragged herself forward, her legs trembling beneath her. Her mouth, dripping with blood from the kick, found the edge of the bread again. With a determined bite, she clenched the bread between her teeth and limped away, disappearing into a narrow alley. The man, who had thought nothing of his cruel act, glanced over his shoulder, curious. Something about the dog's persistence tugged at him. He decided to follow her, his mind wondering why she had endured the pain just for a scrap of bread. He trailed her through the narrow streets until she disappeared behind a dumpster in a dimly lit alley. There, huddled in a corner, were 3 tiny puppies, their eyes barely open, waiting for their mother. The man watched as the white dog, still bleeding, gently dropped the bread in front of her pups. They scrambled eagerly to eat, oblivious to their mother's pain. She nuzzled them, licking their tiny heads as they fed. The man's heart sank. He hadn't realized. The dog wasn't just a nuisance, she was a mother, fighting to survive for her babies. Guilt washed over him. How could he have been so cruel? Without a word, the man turned and left the alley, but he didn't go far. He returned minutes later, carrying a warm blanket and a bag filled with food. He approached the dog slowly, his movements careful, and laid the blanket on the ground beside her. The dog watched him cautiously, but she didn't move. "I'm sorry," the man whispered, placing the food down. He looked at the puppies, who were now dozing, full from their meal. "You don't deserve this life." Over the next few days, the man visited the alley, bringing more food and water. Slowly, the white dog began to trust him, and then one day, he brought a small crate with him. He knelt down and whispered, "I have a better place for you all." Gently, he scooped up the puppies, one by one, and placed them inside the crate. The mother hesitated but followed, limping after him as he carried her little family home. From that day on, the white dog and her puppies no longer wandered the streets. They had a warm place to sleep, food to eat, and a man who had once been cruel, but now understood the meaning of kindness.